All right, I'm here at Breakthrough Fitness Marylands, which is where I train and coach. This is going to be the start of a prep series. I'm prepping for a competition in 6 weeks. This will be my first competition with my new coach, Marcellus Williams. Training's been going really, really well. This is our 9th training block together. We have done a testing day along the way, but no competition just yet. It'll also be my first proper comp in the 105s. I did a competition about a year ago as a very, very light 105. I think I was like 97. I should be weighing in at this competition at more like 100 kilos, so we're kind of getting there, but it's been a bit of a slow burn. For those of you who are in the IPF in Australia, you know that the Nationals is right around the corner where I won't be competing. I'm just going to be kind of setting up my trajectory for next year's Nationals. So I'm here with some pre-workout in my diary, writing out my session for the day. I like to get my session on paper to then sort of put my phone away for the session. So to give a brief insight into the block that's just gone by and this block coming up, generally we do 4-week blocks. Well, we do 4-week blocks. This one's a bit weird in that it's a 5-week block, and the only reason it's a 5-week block is to kind of set up the competition block correctly for comp day and just to make sure things are lined up correctly. So that means that when you look at a 5-week block versus a 4-week block, it means you kind of have like this dead first week, which sort of just exists, and it can be sort of seen as a deload week. So I did that 2 weeks ago. I just completed the real week 1, I would call it. And I'm going to put some of those videos on screen here to kind of give an insight into how that week moved. Very easy week, very strong week. And the great thing is that coming off of those 2 weeks, the body feels great. The mindset's fresh, and I feel ready to really attack the rest of this block and then go into the competition block. The way things will work is the competition block never really eventuates. It kind of peaks on comp day, and we also taper some elements of the block as well. So this block is really the meat of what remains and will be the heaviest that I'll lift before competition. So if we consider this to be a 4-week block, today starts off week 2, and it's an SPD day today. And what I'm going to do in this video is just, again, briefly reflect on the week 1, like the real week 1, and showcase some of that, like I said. But really, after the session that I'm just about to do, I'll come back out here if it's not raining and just recap how today's session went. The idea is that we're just building very steadily throughout this block, as we always do, generally on the primaries, which are all on the same day, today, Saturday, SPD. We take an 1 RPE increase each week. Marcellus gives me load ranges, which forces me to stay at the appropriate intensities for the first 3 weeks. And then we usually do quite a big jump into the final week. So I think this block, we're looking at taking anywhere from 20 to 25 kilo jump from the week 3 to the week 4 on both the squat and the deadlift. And I think on the bench press, it'll be somewhere in the realms of 10 to 15 kilos from week 3 to week 4 on the bench press. So I'm excited for that. All of that will come, and I'll sort of explain a little bit more about where those numbers are going soon. But the other thing to reflect on is that the main focus from an intensity standpoint is going to be my secondary days in this block. What that allows us to do is keep the quality really, really high on the primaries. We're still going to push them, but the main focus is going to be to push those secondaries along from that point of view of where's the main stimulus, I guess, coming from. The reason we'll be doing that is that last block we were able to hit some really sort of sub-maximal secondaries at really good loads, and that gave us a little bit of room to kind of buffer those same reps up into this block and keep taking steps forwards. And I think that's where like the low-hanging fruit comes in from block to block to sort of see, hey, how did last block go and what can we like most easily progress? And I know Marcellus spoke about sort of like the path of least resistance in your training recently in one of his YouTube videos. And I think this for us in the block coming up is going to be exactly that, where we can take kilos on those secondaries, build strength, build confidence. Over on the primaries, make sure everything is like absolutely perfectly to comp standard and still progressing and still getting to a solid place by week 4, but that we kind of have our priorities in order. And then obviously in the competition block, those secondaries really become back of mind and a lot more tapered, and the primaries is where we're going to make sure things really, really shine. Keeping in mind, with all of that being said, when I push my secondary days, I tend to tolerate that quite well, and it doesn't really get in the way of my primary days. depending which one you're talking about. The only one that I find I have to be a little bit more conservative on is my secondary conventional day with the RDLs. I find if I push those really, really hard too early, my lower back gets a bit fried by the third and fourth week, which can really take away from my performance on my squat and on my deadlift. Anyways, that's enough of an intro and a bit of a recap of where we're heading, what the general sort of gist of things is right now with my training. I'm going to get stuck in, finish off this pre-workout, let that settle, and get into my training today. We have a squat top single at 6, anywhere in the range of 245 to 250. We have a bench top single at 7, anywhere in the range of 157 to 162. We have a deadlift single at 6, anywhere between 245 and 250. I don't do any working sets at the moment on my competition squat. I'm doing 4 6s on the bench press, and I'm doing 3 4s on the deadlift. I've got it written in pounds here right now, so I'm going to convert that to kilos, and I'll be able to throw that on the video when I actually put it up. After that, I've got 4 sets of belt squats, 3 sets of chest supported rows, and 3 sets of face pulls, and I'm going to get into it. Nala, come on. All right, so it started raining after my session, so I didn't film a recap of the SPD, but it's the next day now, and I'll pretty much just talk through how yesterday's SPD session went. Like I said, it's like the real week 2. Overall, the summary is it went really well. I was very, very happy with not only where my strength was, but also just the standard of lifting from competition standpoint. Really happy. So squatted 250, top end of the range, benched 162, and deadlifted 250. So as for where the targets were for the day, it was very nice. As for how week 2s generally feel, when my week 3s and week 4s kind of trend well, very good, very strong. RPEs wise, really the only one that was really on the scale was the bench, and that was about a 5. The squat was just a little bit under 5, and the deadlift was actually a little bit easier than the squat from a relative standpoint. Now that's pretty big news for me, because since starting working with Marcellus, and prior as well, it hasn't been a Marcellus thing in terms of the performances, but we've kind of been digging my deadlift out of the gutter, and I haven't had a block with Marcellus where my deadlift has felt easier than my squat at the same load. Actually, a lot of my blocks I've been deadlifting less than my squat. So it's a really nice turning point now to be in a block where we are being a little bit more aggressive with the deadlift, and we are being a little more conservative with the squat. But the same loads in my SPD yesterday felt just as good as one another, actually just slightly better on the deadlift, and that's really nice. My squat's still progressing really nicely and feeling really good. It's just that my deadlift's feeling particularly good again, so I'm very happy with that. It's always nice to say that all 3 lifts are going well. The squat was, probably about as good or the best that 250 has ever moved, and from a depth perspective, it was really, really nice. For me, the depth that I hit in this video here is me like really pushing into depth. For a variety of reasons, hitting depth is not kind of just like an automatic thing. It's something that I've really got to push for when it comes to my biomechanics and the mobility that I have at various joints. And I think I did a really good job here of hitting depth well, and also still maintaining really good balance throughout the squat and good drive. The things that Marcellus and I have been working on with the squat has been to do exactly that, to have a descent that is initially dominated by the knees and that the hips reference off of that, and that the speed is natural. It's not forced fast and it's not forced slow. Something quite similar with the bench press that has been quite a big change for me with Marcellus is I don't wear a belt anymore, and I've eventually found that to be really good, and that I, similarly to that squat conversation, have sort of changed my descent speed a little bit from being really fast to being a little bit more in that middle where it's not forced fast and it's not forced slow, and that's been feeling really strong and, most importantly, a lot more reliable. So things are going really well there. I used to have an experience with benching, particularly after heavy squats, like on a comp day, where bench would get a little bit tanked. Maybe an element of that was the inconsistency element of the speed on the descent, and then maybe an element of that too was that I've started training SPD more lately, and there's probably some form of getting used to benching after squatting and having all your primaries on the same day. Moving on to deads, I had a good 6 to 9 months there where my hook grip was very average. Marcellus and I were sort of jumping between hook grip conventionals and mixed grip sumos, and just really experimenting a lot with my deadlift, which I appreciated doing with Marcellus, because He took what I said coming into the coaching relationship at face value, but he also wanted to see for himself what he thought was going to be best for me. And after all of that experimenting, we've been able to come away saying, yep, conventional is best for you, hook grip's good, and it's also in a really good spot right now, even though it was going through a bit of a weird phase. And that just took me reassessing elements of what makes a good hook grip, practicing, and just kind of going back to square one with those things. It's paid off really, really nicely. So I'll probably dive into, maybe I'll do a video about my deadlift itself at some point and kind of dive into those elements just a little bit more, and even just the mindset variances between squat, bench, and deadlift for me. But this SPD session was very clean. The 250, 162, 250. We ended up bench pressing 137.5 for 4 sets of 6. That was great, very easy. Just allows me to really dial in my technique. And then on the deads as well, I think I did 3 4s at 212 flat, and those were exceptional. I tend to do my first set of those hook grip, and then I strap up the next 2 sets. Again, just little nuances of what works for me with hook grip overall. So very clean SPD. Really, every rep of the SPD session was exceptional. I was very, very happy with the quality, and I'm not often giving myself that kind of praise. Usually I'm pretty happy, but this was one of those really good sessions where everything was just clicking beautifully. After that, pretty standard, a few accessories to get through after a fairly long SPD day. Belt squats were great. Hit a relative PR for the week of the block that I'm in, so things are really moving strong across those movements too. So couldn't be happier with the way that session went. So that's pretty much a summary of how things went last week, and then coming into the beginning of this week, which the SPD is always the first session of the week. From here, I haven't really decided what I'm going to do, whether I'm going to kind of do these like weekly recaps, or whether I'll more focus on one session or one lift or something like that. So we'll see where we go. I'm going to let it run. I'm not going to really plan it too hard and just have fun with it. So yeah, like I've said previously, if there's any thoughts or comments or questions that you have, please drop them in the comments. Follow along if you want to follow along. Like the video if you want to like it. Because for me, this is really just a fun passion thing. So I hope that anyone who tunes in enjoys and gets something out of it. The idea with these vlogs and with getting on camera and kind of doing something more long form is just putting more of myself out there, enjoying that process, and hopefully someone gets something out of it. That's always nice. But it'll be nice to just have things documented from this prep, and then moving on from that, we'll see what we do from there. So I really appreciate any support and any questions or thoughts that come my way. I'd be happy to take them on. Some of you will have seen the dogs on Instagram, but some of you won't have. But either way, let's introduce them. First we have Leo, goofy little boy, younger of the two, and he's the best. One of the most loving dogs ever. Very affectionate. Will happily give me licks on cue. Looking up all my moisturizer, and yeah, as you can see, special kind of guy. So that's Leo. Had Nala for a few years before getting Leo, so she's kind of like my dog before Steph and I got Leo. She's a little bit more of a baby. As you can see, she's very used to being held, and yeah, she's a little angel. You can tell I probably have a favourite. I do love Leo, but Nala has a special place in my heart. And that is about it. So I'll catch you in the next one. Maybe 3 of us, maybe just me. But thanks for tuning in, and time to look forward to some high bar squats tomorrow. See you later.